Imagine if TED and TEDx only invited people who were already famous to deliver TED Talks. Imagine the limited talent pool from which they would draw if this were the case. Imagine the people and the big ideas they would say no to. Having been in the publishing industry for the last nearly 20 years, I've seen a shift in the way my industry says no to people. Today, I'm going to talk about 3 traditional creative industries: book publishing, film, and music. And a shift we're seeing in the arts to greenlight only those artists who are already famous or who have celebrity connections. Sure, you might argue it's always been this way, but never before has there been so much pressure on creative people to have star quality. And never before has celebrity been so arbitrary. It's as if reality TV were taking over our actual reality. Oh, wait, never mind. But you don't have to look too far to find examples of breakout books, movies, and songs that no gatekeeper wanted to take a risk on, that are known to us today only because the artist greenlighted themselves. Perhaps you've heard of some of these projects: A Christmas Carol, The Joy of Cooking, Good Will Hunting, this year's breakout film success, Get Out. And fan-funded music is such a thing that the topic even has its own Wikipedia page. I call these people greenlighters. Greenlighters are not sitting around waiting for someone else to say yes to their dreams. They're artists and creators and makers who determine that their sense of worth comes from within and not from someplace out there. And there are more greenlighters today than ever before, perhaps because our traditional creative industries are taking fewer risks than ever before. And the rejection artists face stems from lack of vision and sweeping generalizations about what sells and what doesn't. People are rejected for lack of celebrity, yes, but also for their projects being too similar in concept to something else that's already out there, or for appealing to too narrow an audience, such narrow audiences as all African Americans, for instance, or all LGBTQ people, or for their work being too dark. I can't tell you how many times my sales force has told me, grief doesn't sell. And yet, greenlighters are seeing more success than ever, perhaps because their version of success isn't only about the bottom line, and because there's flexibility and freedom in being independent. The reason I care about greenlighters is because I believe they're the shapers of our cultural values in a way that our traditional creative industries used to be. I care about them so much that I wanted to come out here today to appeal to them directly. Maybe you're one of them. The reason greenlighters need to be appealed to is because there's a perception in our culture that the only people who get to call themselves artists are those who are ordained by the powers that be. But it's time to put an end to that myth. Greenlighters are not second best, as evidenced by the fact that the moment someone makes it, they're brought into the fold. And it takes a lot more courage to greenlight yourself than it does to wait for someone else's yes. I've been doing my own field research on this topic for some time. I've seen in book publishing the way authors get rejected, not for the merit of their work, but for their lack of connections. My own story is one of disillusion and reinvention, and I'm going to share with you how I became a greenlighter too. Sometimes it takes bumping up against disappointment or rejection, to embrace the idea that you may in fact be a greenlighter. Sometimes it takes walking through fire to see the path you thought you wanted to be on wasn't meant to be your path. So often, our creative pursuits are tied up with a desire for external validation, which then somehow confers legitimacy. But legitimacy cannot be bestowed. You have to take it, especially today when our gatekeepers are thinking too small and our culture is rewarding the wrong things. Let me show you what I mean. I was 23 when I started working in book publishing. I was smitten with this industry. I loved everything about it. Making books, reading books for a living, deciding what gets to be published. When I got my first job in publishing, I was so filled with gratitude for the amazing privilege to get to do this work every single day. My second job in publishing was my dream job. I was hired to be an acquiring editor for a women's press. I was doing interesting and important work. This job was like falling in love. I was right where I wanted to be, and everything was right with the universe. Fast forward 7 years, and the women's press where I was working, where I was now an executive editor, was acquired by a corporate parent company. Suddenly, books that I would have been able to acquire in the past were being scrutinized as not commercial enough. A new emphasis was being placed on the author's physical attractiveness. I was uncomfortable with these changes. My dream job was morphing into something else. My true love had changed, and this was not the relationship I thought I was in. This all came to a head for me in 2011 when I wanted to acquire a book about transgender families. I had been hard at work cultivating trans authors and trans books. Transgender issues were entering into the mainstream lexicon in a bigger way at that point, and this was part of the important work that we were doing at the press. Little did I know, our parent company had decided we'd done enough of those kinds of books. But I was blissfully unaware of this when I got a book proposal from S. Bear Bergman about redefining what family is and can be. I knew of Bear. He was an up-and-coming voice, a trans man with a book I thought really mattered. So I did what editors do. I took the project to my editorial board. I was excited. I thought it was a shoo-in. It wasn't until after the meeting that my boss, the publisher, called me into her office, and there I was, surrounded by the countless books we'd midwifed together over the years. I don't know what I was expecting. Confirmation that she liked the project, validation that it was a good fit for our list, but instead she had a troubled look on her face. She told me that our parent company did not want me to acquire this book. Maybe I could have pressed it, even won the battle, but I didn't have it in me. Truth be told, I hadn't felt this way since the 5th grade when I was cast to be the lead role in a school play, only to find out the next day that I had been pulled off completely because my teacher found out that I already had a part in the after-school production of Mary Poppins as a penguin. Oh no, I had a penguin slide, it's not there, a very cute little penguin. Oh well, imagine a penguin, if you will. Maybe I could have fought for it then too, but sometimes you face those moments in life when you know you've already lost. And this moment with my publisher was one of those moments. And truth be told, I was devastated. And not just because I couldn't acquire this one single project, but because of what not acquiring it represented. The writing was on the wall. I was still nursing my wounds a few weeks later when I got an email in my inbox from a big deal New York agent. This project had all the right bells and whistles. The author was attractive, she was well-connected, and she had a bona fide celebrity attached to her project who was going to write her forward and throw her launch party. This book was about makeup. Corporate was excited, of course, and I was given permission to pay quite a lot of money for this book. I should have been happy, but I wasn't. I was upset. In fact, I was angry. I saw these two authors and these two projects as symbolic of something much bigger. It spoke to me of everything I'd come to dislike about publishing as decision-making, a value of fluff over substance, and rejection of marginalized audiences and acceptance based on celebrity and image. Things sucked for a while after that, and I started looking for a way out. It took another year, but I did leave to co-found She Writes Press with my colleague, Kami Wyckoff. We came up with a non-traditional business model that celebrates greenlighters, with a mission to publish work based on the merit of the writing alone. We can do this because our authors invest in themselves. So our focus is on the book's content and not the author's brand. She Writes Press is just one of many players in a rising greenlight revolution, a revolution that's being necessitated by the extremely high barriers to entry in our traditional creative industries, where gatekeepers are being trained to scout for fame over talent. Unfortunately, this echoes a larger cultural message that we're fed, that fame and celebrity and brand are the highest measures of a person's worth. All the artists I know create for so many reasons beyond a desire to be famous. And because art always finds a way, greenlighters are circumventing those barriers to entry and claiming their legitimacy as artists. Greenlighters inspire me. They have the kind of grit and determination that would inspire almost anyone. Let me tell you about one such greenlighter, my friend, director, producer, Sean Hanish. Sean has made 2 successful films outside of traditional Hollywood. What I love about Sean is that he's not caught up in the scene. He wears t-shirts and tennis shoes to work, and he drives a 2007 Prius. Sean's first movie, Return to Zero, was about the loss he and his wife endured when their first child was stillborn. Sean faced an uphill battle on nearly every front with this film. The content was dark. People told him no one would want to see it. People told him grief doesn't sell. But Sean persevered and almost went broke, self-financing a lot of Return to Zero. Then he did a Kickstarter campaign, and he brought on investors. It was because of Sean's amazing script and not his big budget that he secured Minnie Driver to play the lead. After that, Lifetime bought rights to the film, and Emmy's performance won her an Emmy nomination. Minnie's performance, won her an Emmy nomination. When I asked Sean who his film idols were, he told me that they're the people who just don't care. They're the people who find a way to make their movie, he said. Those people are greenlighters, and they do care, just not about what other people think they should care about. Take Amanda Palmer, lead singer of the Dresden Dolls, another greenlighter, and someone in the music business who embodies this indie spirit. Amanda tells a story in her TED Talk of a record label she was signed to that considered 25,000 copies of her album sold to be a failure. At the same time, people were coming up to her at her shows and they were giving her money, confessing to downloading her songs for free on the internet. This inspired Amanda to start giving away her music for free everywhere. And she started asking for help. Amanda launched a Kickstarter campaign with the goal of raising $100,000, and fans backed her to the tune of $1,192,000. Huge. Remember Esper Bergman? Well, let me tell you what ended up happening to him. He got a book deal for that book that I did not acquire. It's called Blood, Marriage, Wine, and Glitter. His next book was a children's book featuring trans-identified children. The next part of this story will sound familiar. While his fans were clamoring for this book, publishers were telling him there was no market. Bear told me he had what he calls a peak effort moment. Maybe you're familiar with this kind of moment, where you throw caution to the wind and you take that open road. For Bear, this meant founding his own press, Flamingo Rampant, which has published 13 books to date on gender-related topics for kids and families. Bear's effort moment means that he doesn't have to justify that there is a market for his books. He is appealing directly to his audience, which is exactly what Amanda did with her music. Lots of artists are having these kinds of effort moments when they realize that they don't want or need the approval of the industries that they've been seeking approval from for years. And it doesn't matter who you are, this is never an easy moment. It is tough to let go of the dream of what you wanted your creative future to look like. But once you do, you make room for a new dream that you manifest on your own terms. And I personally can't think of anything more freeing or empowering. I grew up in a family that supported my creative dreams, but I didn't even make it to adulthood before someone stomped on my creative vision, future thoughts for myself as a writer. For me, it was a high school teacher who told me my creative writing wasn't so great. Maybe for you, it was a parent or a relative who told you to do something practical with your life. Creativity in this culture comes with baggage. Most of us have raging inner critics telling us we're not good enough. There is so much one-upping and scarcity thinking in the arts. And then there are the misguided values of our traditional creative industries that I've been talking about today. My experience has shown me that we worship at the wrong altars, which is why I'm excited about the green light revolution. For me, it took opting out to realize that there was another path available to me. It took helping other greenlighters to see that, oh my gosh, I'd become a greenlighter myself. If you've ever questioned your creative worth, take a deeper look at where that message comes from. If you've been rejected or set your creative dreams aside, come back to that thing that you loved. Not for fame or money or someone else's agenda, but because it will make you feel more alive. The green light revolution is available to everyone and anyone. If you're not already with us, you're invited. Thank you.